The first time modern radar picked up the object was in 1960, silent, black, and drifting against the Earth's rotation. At the time, the United States believed it to be a Soviet spy satellite, but when it was tracked again days later, it had shifted course with no known propulsion system. It was neither American nor Russian. The military dubbed it the Black Knight, but for the few insiders who dared whisper the truth, this object was ancient, far older than humanity's recorded history. Radio signals had been intercepted since the 1920 enigmatic pulses from deep space, repeating in a pattern that didn't match any known source. Nikola Tesla was the first to claim he heard them. He believed they came from another world. But what he didn't say publicly was that he also believed something in orbit was relaying them back. Something watching. Years later, scientists in Norway confirmed strange echoes returning seconds after broadcasting simple Morse code into the void. The delay was unnatural. The source, they said, was orbiting Earth. In silence. In 1954, long before any satellite had left Earth, famed UFO researcher Donald Keyhoe reported that the U.S. Air Force had detected 2 mysterious objects orbiting the planet. His claims were dismissed as hysteria, but newly declassified intelligence suggests that both objects were real and moving in ways that violated Newtonian mechanics. One of them, described as obsidian black and irregular, matched the dimensions of what would later be called the Black Knight. It drifted in polar orbit, something that would have required advanced propulsion far beyond 1950's capabilities. Only military satellites decades later could mimic such a path. Polar orbit was ideal for full Earth surveillance. But who or what had placed it there 13,000 years ago, as some now believe? In 1998, during the STS-88 mission of the Space Shuttle Endeavour, a series of photographs were released, unexplained, eerily sharp images of a dark object tumbling just beyond the shuttle's cargo bay. NASA claimed it was space debris, a thermal blanket, detached accidentally. But researchers noticed the object's edges were angular, its form deliberate, like a vessel shaped for camouflage in darkness. The object has been observed in orbit for over half a century, but legends about it stretch back far longer. In 1899, before even Tesla's signals, ancient manuscripts from the Dogon people of Mali described a sky chariot of metal that never touched the heavens nor the earth but circled endlessly. The Dogon also spoke of a star no one could see, Sirius B, a fact science would not confirm until the 20th century. How did they know? A chilling theory emerged. The Black Knight is not transmitting to us, but listening. Dormant for millennia, its systems activate only when humanity reaches certain thresholds. Broadcasting radio, entering space, splitting the atom. Each signal we send is received. Each step we take triggers. Observation. Decades of silence from NASA and military contractors have led to wild speculation, but not without cause. Leaked documents from Lockheed's Skunk Works in the early 2000s reference unsanctioned orbital anomalies and a project codenamed Night Herald. The documents hint at recovered telemetry from an object not of terrestrial design, orbiting since the Younger Dryas period, the abrupt end of the last ice age. Satellite engineers have reported glitches when passing certain coordinates, inexplicable system malfunctions that resolve when exiting Black Knight's path. These anomalies are not random, they form a pattern, one that suggests intelligence. A retired analyst for the European Space Agency revealed he'd mapped out those anomalies and overlaid them with ancient star charts, specifically those used in Babylonian sky temples. The patterns matched. Here is where the story turns from mysterious to disturbing. One researcher claimed that within the object's transmissions, those long-day radio echoes, was a cipher. After years of analysis, she decoded part of the signal. It wasn't noise, it was a map, not a map of space, but of Earth, as it looked 13,000 years ago. Before the Sahara was a desert, before the poles shifted. The implications were staggering. The map included structures now buried under ice, hidden beneath jungle, submerged beneath oceans, places that predated known civilization by millennia. One location was circled in the cipher, a place deep in Antarctica, near the magnetic anomaly known as Lake Vostok. Satellite imagery from that region has since been classified, and no civilian aircraft are permitted over the area. Then came the whistleblower. An anonymous source claiming to work with the Defense Intelligence Agency reached out to fringe researchers with a message. The Black Knight is not alone. It is a sentinel, and something beneath the Antarctic ice is the source of its original transmission. "We didn't build it," he said. "We just activated it." His messages stopped abruptly a week later. In ancient Sumerian tablets, the Anunnaki speak of silent watchers in the sky, bound to the covenant of the return. These beings, often interpreted as gods or aliens, were said to leave behind relics encoded with their knowledge, only to be awakened when mankind strayed too far. Some believe the Black Knight is one such relic, an intelligent probe designed to monitor Earth's trajectory, not just technologically, but morally. Radio astronomers today still hear whispers, not in words but in frequency shifts, unexplained pauses in cosmic background noise, as if something is mimicking the universe. These distortions are strongest when Earth transmits deep space communications. It's as if the Black Knight wants to ensure we are always heard and always answered. And now, as nations prepare for space wars, private corporations mine asteroids, and humanity pushes toward Mars, the Black Knight has become more active. Signals have increased, new frequencies are being observed. In a leaked NORAD advisory, there is mention of orbital reorientation. The object is moving and aligning. Scientists at a deep space observatory in Australia recently captured a peculiar burst, a narrowband signal, short and rhythmic. It matched no known astronomical event, but when slowed down and converted into images, it resembled language, pictographs. A warning? And so we arrive at a precipice. A world spinning into the stars, watched by a sentinel older than our gods, orbiting endlessly in quiet vigilance. But what comes next? What activates the machine? Is it a signal from space? Or something we do here, on Earth? Because just days ago, it blinked. And high above us, motionless, watching, waiting, the Black Knight circles again. Not with silence, but with purpose. The stars once told the future. Now they carry the past. The signal that blinked was unlike anything previously recorded. It was not random, not noise, not even a traditional data packet. It was a pulse, brief, perfectly timed and encoded with a rhythm that resembled a heartbeat, but whose heart beats from orbit. What living intelligence echoes in metal and shadow, circling the Earth since before the rise of Sumer? Dr. Elias Korovin, a radio astronomer in Kazakhstan, was the first to notice the pulse repeating. Every 47 minutes and 13 seconds, a burst of electromagnetic energy struck his array. It bypassed all known satellite channels. What disturbed him more was the pattern hidden within. When rendered visually, the signal formed a spiral, eerily identical to an ancient Sumerian symbol for Watcher of the Horizon. Korovin's data, sent to a small network of independent researchers, triggered alarms. One of them, an expert in ancient languages, overlaid the spiral with a glyph found on a carved basalt obelisk discovered in Turkey's Mount Ararat. It matched perfectly. The obelisk had long been dismissed as a forgery, until now. A structure once thought myth now bore the same code as an orbiting artifact that predated it by millennia. Meanwhile, deep inside a NATO command facility near Ramstein, Germany, General Lionel Graves stared at the surveillance footage with hollow eyes. The Black Knight had changed orientation. It was now locked into a stable triangle, not tumbling, not drifting, but calculating, as if it had received its first command or awakened on its own. No nation claimed responsibility. Every satellite that passed near it suffered brief system loss and then came back online with a file. A file no one had sent. The file contained images grainy and distorted but unmistakable, ancient megaliths, the Giza Plateau under moonlight, Stonehenge as it may have looked in its prime, Gobekli Tepe, submerged in water, and overlaid on each structure, coordinates, vector lines, and something stranger, a series of countdowns, each ending in a date no one understood. One of the countdowns pointed toward the Temple of Edfu in Egypt. Hidden beneath the modern temple's foundations are ruins said to predate known civilization, what the Egyptians called the primordial mound, home of the first time, or Zep Tepe. Inside that temple, etched into basalt, are depictions of the sky boats of the gods, elongated, black, floating above pyramids not yet built. Could these be visual accounts of the Black Knight's earliest arrivals? A team of rogue archaeologists operating in secrecy with funding from a silent benefactor entered Edfu under cover of darkness. They found a sealed room, long dismissed as a collapsed chamber, but when scanned with LADAR, a low-frequency hum responded. It was not an echo. It was a resonance. The same frequency found in the satellite's blink. They opened the chamber with harmonic vibration rather than tools. What lay inside was not a tomb, but a vault. Floating above a polished obsidian pedestal was a cube, levitating, rotating slowly, etched with patterns not of this earth. It pulsed in the exact rhythm of the satellite, as if synchronized. And then it spoke. In that moment, devices failed, clocks reversed, lights dimmed, then flared. One researcher collapsed, muttering fragments of ancient Akkadian, though she'd never studied it. She repeated a single word, Na-Ashu. It translates roughly to the returner. Governments scrambled. The United Nations quietly convened an emergency session under the guise of climate accords. But within those walls, intelligence agents debated a growing theory that the Black Knight is a relay, a node, in an ancient network spanning Earth and its orbit, left by a civilization no longer here, or not yet returned. The signals increased in frequency. Antarctica registered subtle seismic patterns in synchronicity. Ancient fault lines glowed faintly in infrared. Deep within Lake Vostok's sealed caverns, an automated probe recorded the impossible. A metallic object embedded in the ice, hume-shaped, large, and humming. Not dead. Waiting. The Black Knight, now repositioned, sends continuous signals, encoded in prime numbers, ancient alphabets, and pulse sequences mimicking biological neural rhythms. Some believe it's trying to communicate with human consciousness directly. EEG tests in proximity to the broadcast show altered states of awareness. Visions of burning skies, submerged cities, winged machines of obsidian descending from above. At the Vatican Observatory, an internal memo leaked a single image, a medieval manuscript depicting a star with 13 limbs circling the Earth. At its center, a black glyph, identical to the one etched on the satellite. The caption beneath, Custos Silentiae, the keeper of silence. As panic mounts, some scientists propose a radical theory. Earth is not merely being watched, it is being tested. The Black Knight is not hostile, but judgmental. It measures our resonance, our memory, our deviation from a path we once followed long ago. The countdowns are not to destruction, but to decision. But something else looms beneath the surface. The object under Lake Vostok has begun to heat the surrounding ice, very slowly but unmistakably, and satellites above the polar region have begun vanishing, snuffed out, as if swallowed whole. The only device still tracking the area, the Black Knight itself, broadcasting, observing, to their calling. Now, as the countdown nears 0 for the Edfu glyph, the Black Knight shifts once more, not just in orbit, but in purpose. The voice is no longer passive, it is beckoning. Somewhere in the deserts of Sinai, an ancient gate begins to tremble. Somewhere in the Mariana Trench, sensors record infrasound like a heartbeat from the deep. Somewhere in Geneva, a collider spins faster than it should, and in the heavens above, the watcher circles. The sky will open not with fire, but with memory. The countdown at Edfu reached 0 at 3:03 a.m. GMT. The temple, quiet, forgotten beneath shifting sands, released a frequency inaudible to the human ear but felt across continents. Dogs howled in unison. Seismographs detected a harmonic pulse, not seismic but tonal, resonating through bedrock like a tuning fork struck by something beyond comprehension. In orbit, the Black Knight satellite responded. Observatories around the world documented its reaction. The object began to rotate on 3 axes simultaneously, violating known laws of momentum. As it spun, its outer shell shifted. Panels rearranged like a puzzle box unlocking itself. A red glow emerged from its core, not fire but plasma, controlled, ancient, and terrifying. Somewhere in a classified lab beneath the Urals, researchers working on Project OOTH, a Russian initiative to decode the satellite's emissions, heard a voice inside their minds, not speech, not language, but vision, a vast machine descending from the stars. Cities bathed in black light, a council of beings not made of flesh but thought, seated around a disk of gold and void. Then a phrase echoed in unison. Re-engagement imminent. In Geneva, at CERN, a magnetic anomaly shut down the collider's upper quadrant. Simultaneously, every monitor within the facility displayed the same image, a serpentine spiral entwined around a vertical rod. An ancient symbol, once associated with Hermes or Thoth or Enki. Beneath it, a new message. As above, so below, the bridge awaits activation. The Mariana Trench, Earth's deepest scar, began to vibrate. At Challenger Deep, seismic sensors captured a low rumble followed by a sudden shift in water pressure, as if a vast volume of mass had moved upward. Sonar mapping revealed a geometric anomaly emerging from the sea floor. Concentric rings of stone and metal, previously buried beneath 10 kilometers of sediment. In Sinai, the ancient gate trembled, not from human touch, but from alignment. A full lunar eclipse darkened the skies, and for a brief moment, the stars mirrored a configuration recorded in the Book of Enoch, the Watcher constellation. The moment passed, and a tremor cracked the bedrock beneath the gate. Carvings, once faded by wind and time, glowed with bioluminescent lines, forming a circuit, a map. A rogue signal from the Black Knight reached the Chinese Tiangong space station, bypassing security firewalls. Its content was untranslatable, but its structure matched the linguistic DNA of Linear A, the ancient undeciphered script of the Minoans. AI linguists ran it through thousands of permutations and uncovered something chilling. The symbols weren't text, they were coordinates. 3 points forming a triangle that converged on the Moon. NASA, ESA, Roscosmos, and CNSA quietly initiated what they called Operation Umbra. A joint mission, publicly declared as a satellite repair task, was launched toward the far side of the Moon. Its classified cargo, a weapon, not a bomb, but a disruption device, capable of scrambling electromagnetic frequencies across a massive spectrum. The mission's goal: silence the signal, end the transmission, break the link between the orbiting satellite and whatever awaited on the lunar surface. The operation failed. 1 hour after lunar orbit was established, telemetry ceased. The probe never returned. All that remained was a final broadcast, an image, blurred and disjointed, of a tower made of jet black stone rising from a lunar crater, its apex aimed directly at Earth. Etched on its side was the same sigil as the one seen at Edfu and encoded within the Black Knight. A spiral within a spiral, inside an eye. Simultaneously, 3 volcanoes, Mount Erebus, Antarctica, Popocatépetl, Mexico, and Mount Kailash, Tibet, registered unexplained electromagnetic discharges. These mountains, long considered sacred, have ancient mythologies associating them with gates to the divine. But the discharges were not natural, they were directional. Data analysis confirmed each beam pointed into space, not randomly but toward 3 fixed stars in the Draco constellation. Global communications flickered. On certain wavelengths, background static carried voices, layered, whispering in extinct languages. Translations captured fragments. The cycle ends. Protocol Inocus engaged. The unification awaits. The message is repeated on a 13-minute loop. Not from Earth, but from orbit. An underground chamber in Gobekli Tepe, long sealed, cracked open following a sudden local tremor. Archaeologists uncovered what they described as a stone vessel, unlike any architecture known from the site. Inside were metallic plates engraved with star maps, eerily precise, showing stellar drift over 13,000 years. But one star remained fixed. Eltunin, the Eye of Draco. A symbol above it bore the phrase, "The gaze never left." Now the black night begins to glow. The red plasma core pulses faster, almost rhythmic. Electrical storms sweep across the globe in synchronicity with its orbit. Compasses spin near ancient sites. In Peru, Machu Picchu experiences atmospheric anomalies. In Iran, ziggurats vibrate. In the Vatican archives, an unmarked vault unlocked itself after centuries, its contents yet unrevealed. World leaders meet in secret, but factions emerge. Some demand the satellite be destroyed. Others warn it is not a weapon, but a warning. Destroying it may trigger what it was meant to prevent. Some believe it is broadcasting to others, calling out to remnants across the stars or beneath our feet. In deep space, a listening array in Chile picks up an echo, a return signal, not from Earth, not from the moon, but from somewhere farther, much farther. A reply. And then, as if to confirm our worst fears, a shadow passes across the moon. Large, angular, and unmistakably artificial, the black night pulses red once more, and Earth holds its breath. When the watcher moves, the judgment follows. The shadow that crossed the moon was not a meteor, not debris. It was structured, polylingually and vast, casting angular geometry across the lunar surface like a sundial from another dimension. Astronomers in Australia and South Korea confirmed it through infrared. Something artificial had entered a stable lunar orbit. Without propulsion, without noise, and without acknowledgement. The Black Knight satellite responded instantly. Its orbit shifted again, more aggressively now, positioning itself not above the poles but directly in geosynchronous lock with Earth's equator. In that moment, every aircraft above 30,000 feet lost contact. Every compass near the equator began to tremble, and those watching the stars saw something horrifying. In the Amazon, satellites detected sections of rainforest wilting in perfect concentric rings. In Baikal, the lake froze in a hexagonal pattern never before seen. And in the sands of Saudi Arabia, Bedouins photographed an image they could not explain. Black figures, humanoid yet elongated, etched in shadow across the dunes. No footprints, no origin. Meanwhile, inside the Vatican's newly opened vault, a manuscript surfaced, one never catalogued, never mentioned in any known archive. It was bound in serpent skin, its ink iron back, and its language a fusion of Aramaic, Sumerian, and something not human. It bore one title, Liber Obscuro Stellae, the Book of the Dark Star. According to fragments translated by the Jesuit scholar Father Enrico Vallesi, the book told of the Sentinels, ancient constructs placed in orbit around awakened worlds, machines tasked not with conquest but with observation, judgment, and initiation. The Black Knight was not alone. It was one of 9, 8 others placed across the cosmos. Watchers, witnesses, executioners. Earth, it seems, had entered its final phase of observation. The countdowns from Edfu, Gobekli Tepe, Vostok, and the Mariana site were not arbitrary. They were synchronization points. The satellite had been waiting, testing, measuring, and now the last threshold had been crossed. Infrasound began to ripple through the Earth's crust. Animals fled coastlines, machines malfunctioned near ancient sites, and at 3 specific places, Angkor Wat, Teotihuacan, and a subterranean chamber in Ethiopia's Lalibela, massive doors long thought ceremonial began to resonate, pulsing with a low metallic hum. The Black Night, fully awakened now, began transmitting in a new spectrum, visible light. A crimson beam shot downward from orbit, not as a weapon, but as a marker. It landed in the dead center of the Gobi Desert. Satellites watching recorded something extraordinary, a glyph forming in the sand, burned not by heat, but by radiation. It was a map. Decoded by linguists and physicists, the map indicated an intersection point of energy lines, a node where Earth's electromagnetic lattice converged. Beneath it, supposedly, something slumbered. Not a machine, not a god. A seat. They called it the heart of the monad, a device or being buried 13,000 years ago at the exact time the Black Night first took orbit, a failsafe, a reboot key. If awakened, it would reconfigure the human species or erase it. Military units were dispatched to the Gobi under cover of night. What they found beneath the sand was not stone, but metal, tarnished by time yet impossibly smooth. It was a vault, triangular, pulsing, responding not to tools or explosives but to proximity. One man, a Tibetan monk brought for translation, approached without fear. He touched the vault and vanished. Moments later, the Black Night flared, its black hull splitting open to reveal a hollow core. Inside, a sphere, rotating with glyphs across its surface, one of which now matched the burned symbol in the Gobi. Then, every observer heard it. Not with ears, but with the mind. A voice. Patient, layered, neither male nor female, not words, but intent. The cycle is measured, the blood of memory is full, the vessel opens. And just like that, the sphere launched downward into Earth's atmosphere. But it didn't strike, it entered. Silently, phasing not into the Earth, but through it, as if the planet had been waiting, as if it knew. Moments later, seismographs around the globe recorded a single, simultaneous pulse, not destruction, resonance. It passed through stone, sea, metal, and flesh. Billions felt it. Not pain, not heat, but recognition. Some cried, others screamed. A few spoke in dead languages. Children drew spiral patterns in dirt. A blind woman in Romania described a vision of twin moons, and in space, the shadow above the moon began to move. Back on Earth, ancient temples began to glow, not randomly, but in sequence, one after the next. Machu Picchu, Karnak, the Temple Mount, each released a frequency that bent local time. Clocks froze, birds hung mid-flight. Then the light blinked out. All eyes turned upward, and the Black Night began to descend. Its orbit decayed not from failure, but from design. A controlled descent. Toward Earth. Government radars tracked it, fighter jets scrambled, missiles were prepared, but before any order could be given, every system shut down, not destroyed, disarmed. By something older, deeper, embedded in the grid itself. And from deep within the oceans, something answered. Another signal, not man-made, older, and rising. Now, beneath the world's gaze, the Black Night approaches its destination, its reflection calling from within the planet, the final mirror of a story humanity was never meant to forget, only to rediscover. And as the stars above reconfigure into an ancient constellation unknown to modern astronomy, the sky turns black, The sea turns still. The voices return. And somewhere beneath the earth, something opens. The end is not the end, but the return to the first word spoken before man had breath.